Welcome back, Red Spotters. I'm not sure you're in the Red Spotlight podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. David Francisco, back with another installment of our WandaVision recap series. This is going to be the recap for episode 5, titled On a Very Special Episode. The last few times we've covered episodes 1 through 4, and we had some pretty exciting and lengthy conversations, and I'm sure we're going to have more of that here because I think more so than ever, this episode is leaving everyone with a sense of what the fuck is going on, which, you know, is really kind of the appeal of this show. So, all of that here on Red Spotlight number 298. David, how are you doing?
Good.
You excited to talk about this episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it just me, or is it like the anticipation to like sit down and talk about this show gets better and better every week? Like the show is kind of getting better and better every week.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Oh my gosh. Just before it was just sort of like, what the heck is going on? I mean, I'm still saying that, obviously, but like there's progress going on now, and just it gets crazier and crazier every episode. So
we should also note for the audience that we're currently being audited in a way. We have a peanut gallery. Alexis Moreno, who is a regular mainstay of the group, is listening in. She's not necessarily going to comment on anything, but if you hear noises that are typically associated with an Alexis Moreno, then there is your explanation in case you hear something going on in the background. So there it is. It's more likely Kyle put a plant in on us to make sure we're not trashing him. I mean, would that really be beyond a stretch at this point? Okay. So episode 5 picks up almost immediately after what happened last week in episode 4. And we're back in sitcom world, right? And so, again, how we usually start these reviews before we get into doing the actual review where we let go of any spoilers and we go in sequence and how the episode was presented to us. We like to give some initial impressions, obviously, without giving too much away about this episode. Although we kind of already teed it off in terms of how we felt. No, this was... it was great. It was great watching it. It was great watching it again. It was exciting. It was heartwarming. It was scary, disturbing, hilarious in spots as well. This is really kind of an example for all of the things that are really working amazingly well on this show. I've loved just about every episode. Episode 4 perhaps was my least favorite, but still very good. Yeah, it was very exciting to see. And also, I got a theme song this week, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy. So the rest of it could have sucked and I still would have been just fine. David, how about you?
No, yeah, this is honestly really great. I think I still prefer the 4th episode. I don't know. I don't know. I think I just like Darcy. I think she was so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode was really great. Really, Paul Bettany was like, he killed it in this episode. Very different performance, and just I do like that he's learning more and more about this world and just kind of like figuring it all out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's still some like more creepiness to Wanda in this episode, and I'm trying not to spoil anything really.
Well, man, we don't have to really. I mean, I think overall you seem very enthusiastic about what you saw, so I think we can leave it at that. It was very good. I think before we get into all of this stuff, it's so fun to just look at what other people are saying. You know, a lot of the fun in talking about this show is the theorizing. And good God, are there so many theories. And, usually when we're talking about things that, involves a lot of theorizing, we kind of, put our nose at it and like, no, that's too stupid to actually. I mean, it's literally too stupid to happen, unless the Mandalorian, in which of course that's exactly what they go for every single week. And God, right up until the end. But in this case, though, there are legitimately a lot of, I would say, really well-reasoned theories for what could be possibly happening here. What they're doing really well with the show is just this sense of misdirection, to even where, you're pretty sure when you see something in the show, like in this episode, for example, you're pretty sure that's exactly what you think you're seeing. And then when you go back and listen to somebody else, see how they read that sequence, then you're kind of second guessing yourself, and it makes you want to go back and watch it again, which is that we've been saying for weeks now, part of the strengths with this show is just the rewatchability. And I think it's pretty obvious that if this was released in one complete drop, all the 9 episodes, I don't think realistically we would be talking about it in such detail just a few weeks later. Mm-hmm. It helps that this show has so many, I would say, hidden meanings, references, Easter eggs for really all kinds of viewers. This is what the MCU is known for. They really do take a lot of care into not just meaningless Easter eggs for those who have read the comic books, but it also does give those of us who are quite hungry for some character work enough material as well, which is, not to trash the show yet again, but something another Disney Plus series that's very well known doesn't do all that well to catering to both fans' appetites. So let's go ahead and get into this episode. So we start off with a sitcom opening, cold open, where Wanda and Vision are looking after their babies, and we have many different gags with, trying to get them to shut up, literally. And I guess the first real moment of note is when Agnes walks in. Again, Catherine Hahn is doing amazing work here. She's a really dynamic actor, even in the way how she plays the same character, but she really adapts maybe more than the others to the different time periods, week to week. And here she comes in, and she wants to hold the babies. Of course, noting that many people, would suspect that she is a comic book character, Agatha, who is a witch and who is involved in the history of those books with the babies. And so she always seems to be around them or connected to the babies in some way. And then she does something that's honestly really, it did startle me as a viewer, because it was a legit oh shit moment, because this was breaking the fourth wall in a way, because Vision was a little reluctant to having her hold the babies. And then she kind of just gives him this really uncomfortable look. She literally stops in her tracks. She looks in Wanda's direction, and she seemingly is asking her permission to do it all over again. As we've been kind of guessing in the last couple of episodes, when Wanda sees something in her show that's not according to plan, she switches it up and she does a do-over. And in this case, Wanda doesn't do that. Agnes kind of preempts that by saying, shall we take that from the top? As if this was a real television show, and if somebody had flubbed their lines and we're going to do this all over again. It was legitimately creepy. And it also pointed to some ideas of what that could suggest. What tell me, David, what you think that suggests overall in terms of Agnes and then Wanda.
So first, Agnes could have improv that easily. I don't know why she couldn't do that, but yeah. I mean, come on, just a simple, relax, Vision, come on. It's
but she chose not to. So that's a really good point. That's a good point. She didn't really need to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, it was for sure really creepy. Mostly because she could have easily just reversed that afterwards and just have Vision ignore it, or I don't know, or maybe, or like it would have been cool if like the Vision himself was reversed to like ignore to forget that moment or something like that. Although I guess that would have seemed like really bad for Wanda, but whatever. But I think it just mostly means Wanda's losing more and more control, or maybe that she wasn't the one reversing it in the first place. You know, like maybe when you first saw it, when she said no, you know, it could have been her asking the person who made all this to kind of like help or fix it. I don't know.
But at the same time, Wanda did seem genuinely confused as to what Agnes was getting at. From the way that I read it, in that particular moment, Agnes seemed to be the only person that acted like this was a television show and not real life. And Wanda and Vision were varying levels of confused, right?
Well, she seems just genuinely confused about all of it, because there are moments where she really is like into this world that she created and all that, but then like when moments of just when it really, really breaks the fourth wall, that's when it's almost like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just when there are moments where like the whole show is going wrong or something, or something's like from the real world is coming in, it's almost like she's still in a trance, but like,
yeah, she's not really weird. Breaking character. She's not really breaking character the way that we'll see later in the episode, right? So that's always kind of what's giving us pause in terms of how much is Wanda really in control and how much is she aware of it. You know, we have to keep reminding ourselves of just the perpetual nature of misdirection that keeps being thrown our way. One thing before we go off into something else, where we get back on this, there was something that was pointed out via one of the podcasts that I listened to that I thought was hilarious, but then I think it also pans out. So you mentioned something that in the world of television is known as breaking the fourth wall, which is, you know, acknowledging the fact that where the character acknowledges that they're in a television show and they look straight at the camera and talk to the audience. Well, and I can't imagine this was a complete accident, but it turns out that back in episode, well, technically it would have been the last episode when we saw what happened with Wanda and Monica. When Wanda kicked Monica out of Westview, she literally crashes through four walls.
Wow.
She literally crashed. Someone I think on YouTube was like, might have put, you know, did the work and saw this, but she literally busted through four walls and then she was out of the TV show.
I heard one theory that was like kind of insane, but also like we've heard this kind of theory all the fucking time. But the commercials, some made a theory that the commercials are connected to the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, I keep hearing that one as well. Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
There's some weird patterns because there's 6 Infinity Stones, and I think we're expected, when it's all said and done, to get 6 commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And that apparently the commercials themselves are some kind of representation of the power of each of the Infinity Stones. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like the soap, it's in that blue box, so that's the Tesseract.
A blue box. That's what the Tesseract is.
Yeah, and then what is it? Oh, the toaster thing. That's what was it? Was it the Mind Stone? Yes, it was the Mind Stone, because in the comics, Wanda refers to Vision as a human toaster or a talking toaster or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he has the Mind Stone and all that. The Logos thing, that's the Reality Stone, because it's a red liquid, and then you're trying to fix certain messes that you made or something like that, like, you know, changing. And then what was the other commercial?
I kind of forget at this point.
Yeah,
but they've all been well done. I mean, that could be it.
Yeah, the watch was a time stone. obviously.
How many
So-
sides is a hexagon?
Hexagon? I
Is
don't
it
know.
6?
6? Yeah.
Is it 6? Okay, because
Yeah.
that number keeps popping up. Yeah, it's crazy because like for the first time, a lot of really out there, outlandish, crazy theories maybe can be true in something like this because we're dealing with magic, we're dealing with, multiple universes. We can't really be sure of anything. But to get back to Agnes, okay, this brings up another question, right? So, she seems to be the only person around the family that sees really weird and very questionable things happen in front of her eyes, and she doesn't question them. So immediately after, when Vision and Wanda are, having a back and forth about what the hell that shit was with Agnes, right? Vision is really just weirded out, and I think this is the beginning of him just like really begin to question, not just like question something weird is going on, but something much weirder is going on. That when he asks Wanda, did you really not see what I saw? Wanda just apparently does not acknowledge it, and then the babies age up 5 years, technically speaking. And it cuts to Agnes, and she's like, kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try. She's not fazed by that at all. And later on in the episode, when we come back from the theme and from a sword segment, Wanda is evidently so unconcerned by Agnes's presence, since she didn't seem to question anything beforehand. She just willy-nilly uses her magic in front of her. I mean, I don't know if this confirms anything new, but it's more evidence to suggest that Agnes is very, 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 very much aware what this is. And yet we still don't have the foggiest idea what she's after, what she's planning, what she's really doing. Well,
I mean, it's also just not her per se, because I remember that one part where they're looking for their dog, and they pass the male guy, and he goes, "It's like, don't worry about it. Your mom won't let him get lost," or something like that.
Yeah.
But like he points it out specifically, like, your mom's got this, like whatever. The thing though with Agnes is that she could. I feel like her specifically, she's breaking down.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just find it weird though, like with the moment where, she's looking for a drink and it's like, okay, whatever. But then when she has like the drink in her hand, she's just like standing on the or sitting on some table and makes that comment, and it's like, I don't know. It didn't seem like a comedic thing to do. It just seemed more like whatever, like I give up or something. I don't know. To me, it just seemed weird, that moment, for me at least. And so Agnes, for sure, I think she's always just known of what the heck is going on, and I think she's breaking down from it because either she's not getting what she wants, or it's taking too long, maybe.
Well, here's something else that others have said about, going and taking a look at the other episodes that we've seen before this, right? And Agnes's interactions. There have been those that have said, perhaps, and I wonder, because we didn't read it this way, I guess, maybe not. I don't recall. It feels like forever ago at this point, since we were talking about episode 3, even though it's only been 2 episodes, but yeah. There are people out there that are thinking that Agnes intentionally distracted Vision with Herb while Wanda gets rid of Monica. Because at the very, I don't know, it seemed very much at the time that Agnes knew she's not from around here. we don't know what she is or who she is. And I think we suspected at the time that Agnes is trying to make sure Wanda doesn't completely break down, because if she, like, at least at that point, it seemed as if Wanda got a whiff of what was really going on here, she would lash out, destroy everything, and kill everybody, and maybe Agnes was acting in the best interest of the townsfolk. But we've since moved so far beyond Wanda not being aware at all to, well, last week it seemed no, she was completely aware, and now this week we're like, well, we don't know what she's really aware of, even though we saw her walk out of a portal, you know. So, and we'll get to that scene when we get there. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but I can't really say.
I think that's kind of far-fetched, just because how could she have known that Wanda will kick her out in that moment?
Well, she really couldn't. Yeah,
I don't know. That's I don't know. That part seems kind of far-fetched, but I was gonna mention something else, but I forgot.
Okay. In episode 3, all that stuff that was going on with the stork, was that another example of Wanda's powers just completely not working, or was that because so the kids, the twins, are shown to be able to age, but aside from that, there's no discernible abilities that they have. I think some people were thinking that maybe it was one of the twins, Billy or Tommy, who was, even though they weren't born yet, which is crazy, making the stork from disappearing when Wanda was using her magic. Or could that have been some third party?
It could just, I just thought that it could have been affected by her pregnancy.
Right, which is what everything else around that time was being, causing her to like lose control.
Yeah, it could have just been that. But for the kids, though, I wouldn't say a third party. Well, it could be that, actually, yeah. That she just can't use her magic at all on them. Like, whatever's like keeping her there is not letting her.
Well, she can't seem to control them from aging.
Yeah.
Which only makes us question, okay, well, she keeps saying she's in control. So a couple of things that are not really in her power, it seems like. So there's that. All right, so that's the opening part of the episode. We cut to the theme song, and oh my God, like, look, the Lopez's deserve all the Emmys for these songs. I don't even know if the Emmys have a category for Best Original Song. All I'll say is the Oscars should, in lieu of the Emmys, just go ahead and give them all the Oscars for Best Original Song, because no other song I would say that's been nominated in the recent awards are come close to. Look, just think about this. This show is obviously paying an homage to the classic sitcoms of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s thus far. And all it really needed to be was like enough. But that really wasn't what they were going for. They have turned in some legitimately great songs to the point where if you didn't know this was like about this is a sitcom homage show, and if you didn't know WandaVision existed, maybe if you listened to this, you would think that this was an actual sitcom from the 80s. Like the tone, the feel of it, even the lyrics, immediately won me over. I honestly have loved every single opening theme. And this one was longer, but then again, that's the style of this decade. And like we've done with, I believe, the last song, which was in the 70s episode, we took a look at the lyrics to see if there was any bit of a hidden meaning, right? Well, I have some of the lyrics here. And again, like this is just the brilliance of the Lopez's just kind of making the songs just another extension of what the story is. So this is what I have here from the first opening moments of this song. So we wander the world with a vision of what life could be. Then the years come and teach you to just wait and see. And this is key here. Forces may try to put us apart, but nothing can faze me if you're in my heart. Crossing your fingers, singing a song, making it up as we go along. which seems pretty evident what really is going on here. But I think that the foreboding part about that is forces may try to put us apart, which is exactly the threat that Wanda faces if she lets this world go, at least from this distance, that she has to say goodbye to Vision, which she's clearly not ready to do so. But nevertheless, it was hilarious. Those pictures of baby Vision were like, what the fuck am I watching?
Honestly, a little bit disappointed that it wasn't like an old computer as his baby picture. Like, come on.
Oh my goodness. No, it was legit perfection. The title sequence in and of itself was an homage to Family Ties, which was an 80s sitcom that aired with Michael J. Fox. And then there were also, of course, the set in and of itself, the house, was very much themed to that television show. But then there were also other references to other sitcoms. Full House got one, I think, toward the end of the opening sequence when they're on the lawn, basically having a picnic. That seems pretty suggestive about what that is. But we may get some more of those from Full House in this next episode. But yeah. And when we get out of that opening theme, then we come to understand, oh, we're not just doing a sitcom here. We're also moving forward what's happening on in what we know as the real world with Monica, Jimmy Woo, and Darcy. And I had such mixed feelings about that while I was watching it. Not so much now, but while I was watching it, I grew a little disconcerted because I was like, oh, they're going to go for it. They're going to try and juggle both the sitcom and the real world material at the exact same time. And it made me a little bit nervous because before it's either been just a straight out sitcom with some, creepy moments, and then the previous episode was just completely, for the most part, in the real world with swords. So, I had figured at some point we were going to get, the merging of these two realities together, but it happened a lot sooner than I expected. So did that catch you off guard when you saw that moment?
Oh, for sure. Mostly, and not just because we switched worlds or anything, but because, you see the quality change in both worlds too. So it's it's pretty jarring when it switches to those. But at the same time, though, I really, really thought that we were going to stay in the comedy world for at least another 2 episodes. Or
right.
At least we're not going to go back to the real world until maybe the second to the last episode. Or I don't know. But, I mean, I really do like those characters. And I really liked Monica interacting with the other two again.
Yeah.
Or at least with Jimmy Woo again. And I don't know, they really worked well together. Like instantly, it was cool. And I get like their progress of like figuring out this weird world, Wanda's world. It's really cool to see. Like it doesn't. They make it make sense basically somehow.
Yeah, I mean, people are so enthusiastic about them as a trio. Everybody keeps calling them a trio. That they want to go out of their way to reboot a show that's already been done. But, enough said about that. No, but I do legitimately like them. Their presence, anyway, is really endearing and fun and, to watch them put it all together. But I think we start off this particular sequence with, Monica waking up after, not waking up, but I think just getting checked up after having, been forced away from the sitcom world. She meets Darcy and Jimmy, and then they head to a briefing where we once again see acting director Hayward. And in this briefing, there are a couple of takeaways from this particular sequence. One, Hayward has a very polarized point of view on Wanda. He, like, literally take, like, what Wu said, it was an oversimplification. I think that was a bit generous. It was, I don't know, it just felt pretty incompetent, I'd say, for a director of an agency like that to just, oh yeah, well, she's a terrorist. And it also infuriated me. And again, of all things, after the half of the universe was killed, then they were returned, and then a bunch of sacrifices were made, it changed everything, and somehow the Sokovia Accords are still a thing?
Yeah.
I don't know what value the MCU or Kevin Feige sees in that particular story going forward. In my view, I think Captain America Civil War, while many would look at that movie and say that it presented both sides pretty equally, I think it it landed firmly on one side if you go back and look at that movie. The thing didn't work, clearly, because you're labeling heroes as terrorists and you're locking them up. And then if that wasn't enough, when an actual terrorist came down from the heavens, they weren't around because of these stupid pieces of paper. And guess what happened? Half of the universe died. So it seems, I mean, well, I guess if you look at our world, it really isn't all that surprising that some bullshit policy would stay in order because, just because. So that seemed pretty interesting. But Hayward says that it was the Vision's last will that he wouldn't be brought back and that he wouldn't be used as a weapon, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. And that already gives you so many red flags, at least to me. Like, the fuck? When was this established that Vision had a will? I guess you could say maybe he prepared it in the event that he died. I mean, he didn't seem to have much time, during the events of Infinity War to prepare an actual will and testament while he was being hunted down by, like, pixies from space. But okay. And I don't know.
I think they mentioned that it was part of his part of the Accords, like when he signed it. So he put, and I mean, the coming back to life part seems kind of far-fetched to me that's what he decided on. But his body being used as a weapon, that one makes sense to me.
That makes sense. Okay. But here's where it gets a little bit, even like in the story, it gets sketchy for me. So, all right. Vision has been dead for 5 years. That is his body. That is his corpse. Granted. Okay. He technically qualifies as a sentient weapon. Okay, so therein lies perhaps the reason why his remains were housed at SWORD, which is, sentient weapon, observation, whatever the other two last words were. What doesn't feel right is that footage that they showed of Wanda breaking in, and the particular images we see of Vision's remains completely in pieces on different tables. Mm-hmm. And, that doesn't seem like a final resting place to me. It very much looked like an experimentation of some sort, which, if we're going to take director Hayward at his word, would violate the Sokovia Accords, would they not? And then if we're also going to add on something that just occurred to me, didn't in episode 4, when they were welcoming Monica back to the facility, there was some throwaway lines that he was saying that they were making weapons, and we see footage here of Vision's body in pieces. I don't know. It just seems like I am much more now, because of having seen that, suspicious of Hayward's real motives here. Mm-hmm. Not to say in any way whatsoever that he is the main villain, that he is the reason for why this is happening, but he definitely has his own agenda.
He could be the reason why it started.
It could be.
because I mean, for me, like to me, it would like what brought Wanda into that facility? Like, what made her go, I'm getting Vision's body? Like, that's the big story that we need to know. And it could be because maybe Mephisto or whoever like came up to her and it's like, hey, I can give you everything you want, blah blah blah. Or she
found out they were misusing the body for really nefarious reasons.
Exactly. And so, and then the thing that got me like suspicious of Hayward was when he mentioned that, Wanda's breaking the Accords. Vision didn't want to be a weapon. He didn't want to be brought back to life and all that. And it's like, okay, coming back to life, sure. She could have let go and all that, but he didn't want to like understand that she's probably grieving or anything like that. But then the part that got me like, really, is that he goes, oh, and he didn't want to be used as a weapon. It's like, he's being a father here. He's in the comedy show. Like, what part of that is a weapon? Why does she need a weapon? That's the thing. It's like,
why does she need a weapon if Maximoff herself is technically qualified or classified, shall I say, as a weapon herself?
Yeah.
There's another part of it as well. I don't know what is going on here, because I was under the impression that Monica and Hayward have known each other for a long while at this point. And yet he seemed very dismissive of her and combative with her. You know, she honestly was giving her explanation for how she sees things about what's really going on. She does not at all view or subscribe to the same view that Hayward has, thrown out there. But as soon as she speaks up and basically says, I don't know if this is right, he throws her own words back at her. Which, do you really do that to somebody you've known for a while that you're supposed to, I don't know, respect and love? I mean, that seemed very underhanded of him to do so.
Yeah, that's true. Which adds more to the suspicious part, because, yeah, you're right. He kind of throws her under the bus. And you have to add on to the fact that he was alive for the 5 years that people were gone.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, the person that she knew back then is pretty much gone in a way. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be not the big bad guy, but definitely bad guy.
It's looking more and more like something's not entirely right, on the picture that we're getting. One other aspect that people had pointed out that I also saw myself when they were showing footage of From Age of Ultron, the movie, they were showing footage of Wanda in Sokovia, I think in some protests. That was an actual sequence from the film. There was no image of Aaron Taylor Johnson whatsoever, who obviously is Pietro. And I wondered perhaps if that was maybe building to his return, or they just didn't get the rights to use that actor's likeness any longer because he's moved on. I probably would suspect the latter.
Yeah. I didn't think of it much at first, but then after the episode and the big reveal, I was like, whoa, they took him out. That's weird.
Yeah, and I wonder if that was, on some level you have to wonder what happened behind the scenes there. Did he not want to come back and then they were forced to basically recast the role? Or was he just not asked to come back at all? I'm really curious to see what happened there.
I mean, it just really depends if they really planned on the whole multiverse thing for this show. And
it is true. I know I spoke with Alexis over the weekend, and she did tell me that he looks a lot different. And he does look a lot different than when he did back in 2015. So I don't know how much that played a part in his, absence here, but it is definitely something to look out for. And then another aspect that is, honestly, the more I think about it, the more kind of disturbing it sounds. when Darcy suggests how Vision is going to react once he realizes what he is. He's beginning in the course of the episode. At this point, he's very suspicious to the point where he realizes Wanda is in some part of why they're in this. But I don't think we've come to the point yet where he is understanding of what exactly he is. We get a little bit of that toward the end where he questions what his existence was like before they came to Westview. But I don't think he's under the impression that he may be a walking corpse.
No, yeah, for sure. He doesn't know. But no, yeah, it was honestly kind of like sad to watch him realize that there's something wrong with him. Mm-hmm. And again, Paul Bettany, he freaking killed it.
Oh yeah.
But I liked his progression of figuring stuff out. It was kind of like a coincidence, I guess, that he sees that email popping up and everything. But I like how he kind of tried figuring things out. And then when he confronts Wanda about it, first of all, again, Wanda adding to the creepiness of it, where he says, what was it, like, you can't just manipulate your way out of this or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she just goes, can't I? And then the credits roll. And I'm like, oh, shoot. She's straight up ending this right away. But again, it was cool. It was honestly amazing seeing how they just, Vision just kind of like goes through it. And then you see the credits go away. And then that's when they get to like a screaming argument and all that.
Look, yeah, and you're right. Paul Bettany is great. There's some really I don't know, sad but also creepy sequences where he's just like confused and then also really disturbed by what he is seeing. The first moment we mentioned with Agnes, the second moment again with Agnes when she walks in with the doghouse, and then like he's not even in his real form, he's in his human form because he already kind of expects her to come, and then he's like even more suspicious with exactly the thing that we need right now, which is a doghouse for the dog that, you know, Billy and Tommy just got. Of course, the email that they got at work, when everyone creepily reads the email in unison and then laughs at it, then he seemingly frees Norm, or the character known as Norm, out of his trance, and then that was really unsettling, because it's really quite monstrous what these people are being put through. It is a violation in every sense of the word, as Monica said beforehand. And just I don't even think there are any words that Vision says. It's just the horrified look on his face. Just the realization that the person he loves most could be responsible for such horror. So yeah, and
some people were pointing out though that Norm wasn't saying Wanda's
he said her. He said her.
Yeah.
Right.
So
which most would think that would means Wanda, but that doesn't necessarily confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
Could be Agnes. Some people are still thinking Dottie, who we haven't seen in a couple episodes now.
Yeah, I don't think it's her.
I don't think it's her, but it's being thrown out there. But that is true. Although it also could mean Wanda. I mean, some, I think, like Agnes and Herb, seem to be some under kind of impression that Wanda is behind all of this. So who knows really how much they know. But let's stick a pin in that and we'll get back to that toward the end of the episode. I actually wanted to do something pretty uncommon, and that is to just give a wonderful shout out to the crew of the television show WandaVision, because the hair, the makeup, the sets look stunning. And to do period pieces like these is expensive. I know that just because not everything is CG or effects heavy does not mean that they're saving a couple of bucks on this show. It is honestly really pricey, especially with the actual sets that they've constructed with the houses. And yeah, so just that's part of the immersion, right, of this television show. So I think the crew definitely deserves a lot of praise for being able to recreate really just about as much as they possibly could from those eras. So speaking of the sequence where they find a dog, they age up again. Mm-hmm. They age up to 10 years. And I guess of all the things that Vision questions this episode, that doesn't seem to be one of them.
Yeah, like just like one little question of like how the heck this is happening and all that, and I feel like it. Actually, no, never mind. I was gonna say it would make sense if he's thinking like, oh, she's part magic and all that, but never mind. I think he should be worried. Like, are they gonna be grown-ups in a few days or what? But I don't know. I think it's just. I guess it's just part of the trance that they're all on. Just accepts it.
Yeah. No, but I think, Billy and Tommy were fun additions to the family. We got to see Vision and Wanda as parents, which again is just something that is sweet, and then underlying just so deeply tragic, because that's just not something that they had the chance to be. So again, the show plays a very fine line between sweet and tragic. And when it comes to their relationship, but they were, I don't know, I mean, again, we should also mention that, aside from all of the mysteries going on, they are nailing not just the authenticity of how sitcoms look and feel like, but also how funny they are, and then also how heartening they are as well. You see here Wanda, I think, when the kids are questioning where, Vision is at, where he is he like, does he not want to be around us? And then also, well, I'll get to that one, but she basically gives the stereotypical or the typical sitcom trope, like especially I think Full House is the one that is most known for like the heart-to-heart moments. God, I don't know how many times an episode they did that, but when and then it's funny because she is an Olsen, so there's that. But she, Elizabeth Olsen, she takes them, sits them down, and, is being truthful basically in a way of like why he's not there. It's like he needed a distraction. He needed to clear his head. That's yeah. Again, that also leads us to question, okay, Wanda, how much is it on purpose? How much do you not aware? But putting that aside, when she's asked about her having a brother, I just, what I love about these moments is just giving Olsen and Bettany, and all the other actors, the ability to flesh out these characters, the ability to actually act. And my heart kind of broke. Her, her eyes going off to the side, and then her saying, I do. He's far away from here, and I miss him. It's just something as simple as that. I really wish people would talk more about those moments, although I realize people just see them as a nuisance and not really part of what makes the appeal of the show. But hey,
yeah,
which is enraging on my part. And then again, and that one actually is more sad because I don't know how often at least in the sitcoms that I've seen, I don't know how often the pets would die. I know some of them would have like big episodes where they would explore death. I know one episode that sticks out in the back of my mind that left such an impression on me, because it explored death, and at that time I must have been like, I don't know. This was 2004 or 5, maybe 10, maybe 11. I think that's when it was. I can't be sure when, but I'm talking about Full House.
Yes. I was thinking the same thing. I think we're thinking the same thing.
Well, I am talking about an episode where it's very heavy on Michelle, and how she deals with the passing of I think the character's name is Papuli, which was the older character who died in his sleep suddenly of a heart attack, and then the next morning she wakes up and everybody's crying, and I can't even tell you why that left such an impression on me, but to this day I still remember just being shaken by that, or I assume you were as well.
I cried every single time that episode came up. Like, it's just I mean for that episode specifically, like, it was a way different moment from the entire series. But they also just handled it super well. Like, it really was, like, the death came out of nowhere, like any other person's death, really. And also, who was it? Uncle Jesse? Like, the way he handled it, just, like, trying not to show any type of emotion, but then, like, whenever, like, it gets being brought up, he almost wants to break down, and he just walks away. And also, Michelle, like, she was clearly starting to love Grandpa. Right. And just, I don't know. It's such a great episode, really.
The point of it is, in the context of the show, is that those kind of moments really do work on me. And so, Wanda is, she's kneeling down. She's trying to explain to her kids that, these things happen, and no matter how hard we want it to not be true, we can't run away from these things. And then the kids ask her repeatedly, bring him back. You can bring him back. Mm-hmm. She refuses to do that. I don't even think she admits that she necessarily can't bring him back, but she won't. And I guess on some subconscious level, this is her trying to teach her kids something. Unfortunately, I can't say I blame her, but she can't seem to do, which is to let go of Vision, which makes it really that much more sad. Because I think that's an acknowledgement on Wanda on some level that she realizes what she's doing is not all that great, and really not what she should be doing. And yeah, that it is an interesting moment. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, she's always trying to teach her kids to let go of something that she can't, Vision and her brother. But I honestly, like, the big thing that I kind of noticed though was Agnes in that scene where the kids go, it's like, oh, you can bring him back, and she's like, you can do that and all that, and then she kind of like, she could have like started crying because she's trying to Juana's trying to teach her kids something, but I don't know. Again, I'm very suspicious of her. God damn it,
Agnes.
Yeah,
people were thinking she killed that dog. Do you think that?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know. Like, she could be evil, but I don't know about that evil to kill a dog.
Yeah, that didn't seem to track with me whatsoever. But people are throwing it out there, so just to say.
Yeah, I don't know. But so like I mentioned before, that scene where she has like the drink in her hand, she's all like, kids can't control them and all that. And I mentioned that she seems to be breaking down because maybe she's not getting what she wants, or it's not working fast enough or something. And I feel like this kind of confirms it. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Just the way like she kind of pinpoints at the fact that, Wanda can bring someone back to life.
Okay, so there's something that could be at play there, because I know that there was a mid-season trailer, which is people were saying that Disney dropped a mid-season trailer because people bailed after the first 2 episodes, which is disgusting to me and so infuriating. But they're probably right, based on what I've seen on social media, that people just could not comprehend what they were watching, so they left. And so they cut a mid-season trailer to kind of show them, oh no, that's not what this show is. But one of the scenes, I think there's a scene where it's very short, Vision is talking to Agnes, and I think she says to him, am I dead? So, and her having some kind of a mental schism or a mental break. So maybe you may be onto something there when you say that. So we kind of glided past this, but we'll get into it. With the sword people, back to Monica here. There's some interesting looks on her face that I definitely want to get into, because I thought I was the only one that saw this, but upon further analysis, it seems most people kind of understood on some level, some subtle shade that was being thrown, without even saying a word, it seems like. So Jimmy and Darcy and Monica are basically trying to figure this whole thing out, and they're brainstorming ideas. The main, what ultimately comes in that sequence is the idea of infiltrating the vortex, the hex as they call it. I'll use Darcy's term. It's pretty good though. I'll use it. The hex, with a drone that is of that era, which we'll talk in a few minutes. But some other things of note there. So Monica makes mention of an astrophysicist. Is that, or some scientist? Yeah, a scientist with some particular area of expertise. I can't imagine, and I'm pretty confident in eliminating characters like Dr. Salvik and Jane Foster, because Darcy would be the one to mention them, not Monica. So there we can eliminate those. I just saw this video podcast that suggests that maybe they were referencing, what's his name? Some character called Richard Reed, or Reed Richards?
Reed Richards.
Reed Richards. Apparently he's connected to the Fantastic. I'm sorry, the Fantastic.
Fantastic. Hey, they got Fox. They got the guy from X-Men.
The Fantastic Four. So they already confirmed that movie is being made. It doesn't seem like it's too far away. So what do you think? Could that be it?
I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to know. Like, here's the thing about this show. This was supposed to be like, this show was supposed to come out way later on. Like, it was supposed to be Black Widow.
Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first show to actually come immediately after Black Widow, but they had not finished filming.
Yeah, and then it was supposed to be WandaVision. And I feel like, and so this show was supposed to be like a turning point for them to just like completely change the MCU. So
Can I just say, just real quick, I am kind of happy for COVID in this situation, because I think this was the perfect show to launch with, and not just be. I mean, I think it works out perfectly, because the episodes are kind of an homage to television in and of itself. So it's kind of like Marvel embracing television as they have their first, the Marvel Studios anyway, have their first television show. And it also is so much different as well than Falcon and Winter Soldier. So like, even though things didn't work out the way that they were supposed to, I'm kind of glad that they're working out the way that they are right now.
I'm just kind of worried though that people like might not pay attention much to Falcon and Winter Soldier though after this.
Why?
I don't know, because I mean, because like you said, the show is like super, super different. You might have a lot of people going like, oh my gosh, this is a great change. But then once you see Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like, oh, back to formula. You know? I mean, we're gonna have to see what, because it seems like the show Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like, I don't know. It does seem back to formula in a way, but also, I don't know. They could be doing something different. I mean,
I think there is a danger on people like us in our group of maybe that being the response. Sure. But to counter a little bit in terms of what the main populace is going to think, they don't have any issue with anything being back to formula. They seem to prefer it. In fact, I have plenty of tweets I can throw at you that pretty much says that when they stray from the formula, they pretty much are in complete disgust of it. So I don't know how the masses are going to, we're talking about the same masses that, praise that stupid show with a helmet.
Well, like I said, the show WandaVision was supposed to be like a turning point for the MCU where they're going to completely change stuff. So I wouldn't put it past them of just showing like one big reveal after another. So like again, with this episode ended with Pietro coming back, only with Evan Peters. I think that's who it was.
Yes. And
so I wouldn't put it past them if they decide to put Reed Richards here or some other big name character from the comics.
Well, just to briefly put a pin in, to just put a button in all of that, at this point, Black Widow was supposed to come out, Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out, and we know that, the WandaVision television series is the first part of this multiverse arc that Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are going to pick up in their respective films. So I think there's definitely you're right when you're saying that this was supposed to be a big door opening, shall we say, for what, is coming next in the Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But then there's the other instance where I think this was a variation on what you predicted last week in terms of like, well, not exactly this way, because you were talking about maybe a scene where where Jimmy and Darcy and Monica realize that they all basically know Avengers and, geeking out about all of that and everything. Mm-hmm. I probably would have preferred that because while I don't say I'm not going to say it was bad. It was awful. It did make me cringe a little bit. Them kind of exchanging takes on how the final battle in Endgame was, as if they were there or as if there was some kind of footage to see. Yeah. Like, what? That was one of those moments where like it was like, it's like a J.J. Abrams thing. Like it's entirely for the audience, not at all for what the characters are. They're not necessarily big characters, but
Yeah, I could understand it with Monica because she's a sword agent and she's friends with the director. You probably could have told her at some point. But for Darcy and Jimmy Woo, like
it's like they watched the movie.
Yeah,
that it didn't work for me all that well, but it's fine. It's there, but it's just it was also written a little overly on the nose. It's like, Wanda would have beaten Thanos if he hadn't initiated a blitz, which is like, how many times have we seen that? Literally feels like it was ripped out of the comments section on Twitter or something. But then where this gets interesting is when Jimmy mentions Carol, Captain Marvel. The look on Monica's face was not warm. It was not kind. It wasn't, I don't think the look on her face was associated with anything good. Yeah. And that's really weird because, again, as we know, this is the same character we saw as a little girl in the Captain Marvel movie. She refers to Carol as Auntie Carol. Her mom, Maria, and Carol were best friends. That was a very cold look on her face. Maybe not as Alexis is listening, not as cold as Queen Elizabeth, but I think a little bit up that alley. What's going on there? they're like, it's like they're not really on a talking basis or something.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, for sure. I mean, it could. I mean, I really don't know. Like, for sure, Captain Marvel was gone for like her whole the rest of her life after the movie, so she could be a bit salty about that. But then,
What? But wait. Do we know that for a fact?
well, I mean, there's no.
There's no evidence to suggest that she ever came back after the movie. You're right, but is there any evidence to suggest that she didn't come back once or twice on holidays? I mean, she can hyperspace, like she doesn't need a ship to get home. She literally can warp anywhere she wants.
I know, but to kind of like come back in some point that nothing happens in the world, like during that time.
Yeah, you know when something happened? The Battle of New York. Where the fuck was that pager, Nick Fury? that's I know that's like a little fanboy critique there, but that's something that's annoying to me. Like, man, you really were about to watch everything collapse in front of you, and it could have been cleaned up easily with Carol.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think she ever came back at all. But
where is Goose? I still want to know where that cat is.
I don't know. Probably someone else's house. Maybe what's his name? The green guy.
Talos
is taking care of him.
He was scared to death of that thing.
He could have grown into him. Who knows?
Maybe. But yeah, I feel maybe there could be a possibility here where there are some unresolved feelings, and there could be just a little bit of anger toward Carol from Monica's perspective, because it didn't seem she ever came back, or she was around, and her mom died, and nothing, not even a text. So there's an open question. I wonder if Carol even realizes that Maria's dead. Some did point out that in episode 4, when we saw Monica come back, you know, when the ash was being put back together after the snap or the blip, whatever you want to call it, the last voice she hears before she wakes up is Carol's voice. So just something out there. So yeah, there's that. And since we're on Monica, here's an interesting thing. So we see later on in the episode, they use the drone to infiltrate the Hex. They try to talk Wanda down. She's not going for it. And Hayward already has his people behind her back ready to kill her. And there are a couple things I want to say about that. You're the director of a sentient weapon agency, and you're telling me you're that incompetent to not understand on any level that a drone from the 80s is not going to do anything to Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that was dumb.
And then the other thing that makes it irksome is the fact that he went behind Monica's back. What is the need to do that? Why is there a need to do that? I think one possible explanation for all of this is that Hayward is just overcompensating because he's threatened by her. Because technically she's supposed to be the director, not him. Maybe. I don't know. But that was very stupid of him to do so in both of those accounts. Then Wanda emerges from the Hex. Another aspect involving the director, someone pointed this out. Although it didn't occur to me, but I guess people who say this, I think it can make sense. She immediately calls him director. Does that imply they've met?
Did she?
She called him director.
Huh. Well, maybe they didn't meet. Because again, she broke into the facility.
She could assume this is just Sword then, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they met, or like I said, maybe she found out that they were using Vision's body for a weapon. She did some investigating and found out that he was a director. So could. And I don't know. Maybe, and she did like pinpoint to him, like threaten his life specifically.
Yeah.
When she was going back to the hex and all that. So yeah. She could probably know him. Never met him, but knows him. But yeah, so that scene though, that was awesome.
It was.
That was honestly
man.
really cool. Just from the beginning of it, like her walking towards out of the hex, and like you see her silhouette and everything, and she's just like, "Is this yours?" It just throws a drone back.
I loved it. I loved it.
It was so great. But then also I loved Monica in this moment because I loved the way she was trying to appeal to her and all that. And that's one specific line of like, you trusted me to like help you give birth. It's like, I think you know in some part of you that I'm your friend and all that. And I love it though because they keep talking about that what she's doing is subconsciously, like, it's not her fault. She's doing this subconsciously.
It's like a cry for help almost.
Yes. And so I just like those little details, and I really, really hope it's going to pay off and all that. But yeah, obviously it didn't work and all that. She's straightened them, and then she like points the gun right on the director and everything. But it's good. It might seem dumb, but I just I like the way she did it though. Like when she was about to walk away, she raises her hand and almost like flicks it, and then that's when the guns turn. I don't know. It really seemed like she was almost like she really wanted to show off and everything.
It was a bad bitch if I ever saw one. No, this is great. No, look, this is great. I love that character, in the movies, particularly Infinity War. She was amazing in that movie, and I liked her very much in Civil War and Age of Ultron. But let's be real here. This is, I think, what we see in this show, and then particularly in that sequence, is why some of us would have liked a WandaVision movie before Infinity War. Although I think this show is pretty much filling that void because there weren't too many moments like that with her.
Mm-hmm.
But man, she is awesome. She's awesome. Like she's like Elizabeth Olsen's like really chewing away at the scenery, at the dialogue here. It's just it felt like this to some this may be considered an insult because it feels like it would be diminishing her, but that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I mean. But I think Maleficent is one of the big bads of the Disney villains canon.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of this is her Maleficent impression in a way. Like she's capturing that feeling of it, like how powerful she is, and how she has no fucks to give whatsoever. How great she is. Just yeah. I mean, I still don't think like she's full blown villain. I don't think she's going to be a full-blown villain, but I think, hey, that was a great audition, wasn't it? And you're right, when she just flipped the switch and targeted Hayward, it's like, thank you, just thank you. Like, in fact, by all means, go ahead, kill him. We don't need him around anymore. I mean, it's just, yeah. But again, the fact that she doesn't kill him, again, bringing up what Monica said earlier in the episode, the fact that she could have very easily, I mean, Monica could have fallen to the ground with a broken back and she would have been dead. Mm-hmm. But Wanda prevented that. So like, again, that's another example that she's not actively trying to kill people. So there is a degree of separation between that and I think the terrorist that Hayward himself was trying to make her out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then the another important part that you mentioned in regards to Monica, like, look, someone, I don't think you and I caught on to this, but someone else did. I want to credit again Emma Fyffe, I think I mentioned her before in a few episodes back. So remember that sequence back in, I don't know why I feel like I'm saying last episode, when we saw Monica being pulled in to the hex for the first time. And we were thinking about, like, was she under a trance? Was it an accident, or did it actually pull her in? Okay, it pulled her in. Could it be perhaps, and this is a commonality that I think the show is setting up between these two, between Monica and between Wanda, and that is grief, this sense of loss. And clearly they're playing that up, and I think it is going to go somewhere too. Monica is going to be, if there is a way where Wanda comes back from this, it will be because of Monica. But if you're in line with this kind of thinking that it's going to go in that direction, Emma5 pointed out that perhaps the reason why the Hex pulled her in, unlike everyone else, was because Wanda sensed her grief. And it pulled her in because of that. And you know how Monica says, like, on some level you trusted me to help you, deliver your kids.
And Agnes and Norm, though. I mean, Agnes, I'm guessing she is suffering in some form of grief. Because, again, I'm pinpointing to that moment of her kids going, you can bring them back. And
Does she not have a dead kid in the comics? I think somebody pointed that out.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I just know that she's, like, taught Wanda or something how to use magic a bit or something like that. That's all I know from her character. But if you remember Norm, though, when he gets, like, out of the trance, he goes, it's like, my sister, she's taking care of my dad. I gotta call her. Where it's like, where's my phone? So, like, he's suffering some form of grief, too, that, like, wants him to get out. So, is everyone there grieving?
I think it would be a little bit unbelievable on that level. Like, an entire town is, like, grieving over. I mean, I guess you could say they're grieving over the sense of. I guess you could say that they're grieving over their loss of identity. I know that's not a great thing to say, but I mean, maybe I can't really be certain of that, but maybe. But I do think you are right in that what we've been suspecting since last week, that Monica is being set up to ultimately help Wanda through this situation. And again, she's being completely honest. She's being very fair, and she sees that the way to get everybody back home safe is her approach. Whether or not the assholes at Sword are going to let her do that, we'll see.
Yeah. No, I don't know. What else happened in that scene?
Well, I think that was it.
Yeah,
it seemed that way. Then she went back in, and
she did.
I don't know if she put a barrier on it.
That's what I'm guessing. That's a barrier.
It could be that. Well, I mean, she did say that. Look, she seemed very transparent. Like, I'm not harming anybody. I mean, that's an interesting point of view, but she's not necessarily going out of her way to kill people. What she wants, she already has. Just leave, basically tells them to fuck off. Then she goes back into the hex. And then we already mentioned about the dog dying, and so we have the final scene, one of the final scenes, and that is with Wanda and Vision. And Vision is confronting Wanda very directly about when he says, I freed Norm from your I guess sway or programming, whatever you want to say. And she seems like, we're not talking about this. And so I love the thing where, like, you can't control me. And, like, can't I? And then she starts with the closing the episode with, you see the credits and the music coming up. And, but no, that really pisses Vision off. We've never seen him like this.
For sure.
And even Wanda herself is completely taken aback. Like, you've never talked to me like this before. Vision's like, what's before? I don't remember my life before Westview. Like, he gets so angry, he starts levitating, and then she starts levitating too. And then you have that pose where they're like going to really go apeshit at each other, which is interesting because, we've never seen those characters like argue that way before. I mean, the thing is, we did see them fight in Civil War, but like, I don't think directly with each other. But yeah, that was, I think what was more impressive is just how committed Olsen and Bettany are. And that was legitimately scary because, when those two fight, that could be pretty complicated mess. Like the commercial suggests with Lagos, like, for when you make a mess, you didn't mean to. I mean, god damn, you just have to respect the shade, the level of shade, man. That was perfect. Perfect. But anyway, Vision's at the point where he is doesn't really trust what she says anymore. Like he's convinced that she's in control, and he's basically trying to talk her out of this reality. And it seems like maybe it's working. It seems like he's making her think or rethink or reevaluate certain things. But then what she also gives away is also just more confusing. So she's like, I'm not in control. Do you really think I'm controlling every single person in this thing, in this town? And then she says, I don't even know how any of this started. And I'm inclined to believe her when she says that. So what gives? What's going on?
I don't know. We want answers. Just put the rest of the episodes.
It's like it's going back. Is it Wanda or is it not? Is it Wanda or is it not? Like, well, when she walks out of the hex, for those listening, David accidentally hit his microphone. It's okay. Don't worry. We'll come back from it. Wanda walked out of the hex, and at that point, it seemed pretty clear. It seemed pretty clear that she was in charge of everything. But then when she's openly admitting, like, okay, one could say, is she lying? She didn't seem like she was lying. Is she just not that aware when she's in the sitcom world? Maybe. But then all of that flies out the window when the doorbell rings, because then other questions come into your mind, right? And notice how they're cutting this with Darcy back at Sword, looking at the footage that we're watching. And remember that the broadcast that Wanda is signaling out there is cutting away or censoring certain moments that don't exactly go according to plan. And we'll get to this in a minute. Just hold on. Considering who enters the scene here and the shock value that, happens because of it, is there still reason to suspect perhaps Wanda isn't the one who's controlling the broadcast? Because Pietro is back. And we'll get into the implications of who the actor is in a minute. But Pietro comes back out of nowhere. And I believe Wanda 1,000% because of the look on her face and the shock as to who she's looking at. In that she didn't do that. So then that just begs the question. If not her, then who? And how convenient was it that all of a sudden her long-lost brother comes into the woodwork? The second vision is beginning to get her to second-guess herself out of this reality. Yeah. What do you think?
I for sure believe her when she said that she has no idea how this thing all started and that she doesn't have full control of it and all that. I didn't really connect it that they brought back Pietro to keep her here or anything like that, but that makes a lot more sense, and it will make a lot more sense for Vision because he knows she lost his brother, and he probably wants to be like, I guess we can stay here for her a bit or something like that. But that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, what's even more interesting, okay, so Evan Peters, who played a version of this character in the X-Men movies, particularly, I want to say Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix. People really responded to that version of the character in those films because I think in 2 of the movies he had some pretty extraordinary sequences as the Quicksilver, which is the Flash of the Marvel Comics. In a way that Aaron Taylor Johnson's iteration of the character was just not. And to be fair, he was around for 1 movie and they killed him, so there really wasn't much to go off on that per se. But it is the actor who played that version of the character, Evan Peters, here, and as Darcy suggests, recast as Pietro. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I don't remember. I clearly, well, maybe not. Was his name Pietro in those X-Men movies too?
I don't think so. I mean, we can look it up.
If you can, just make sure. Look it up right now, just to be 100% sure about what this is. But look, that moment was genuinely shocking.
Yeah.
That moment was genuinely exciting. It was thrilling. It was mind-blowing. Also hilarious too because I love how when he walked in, you have a trope of later sitcoms where the audience would all of a sudden cheer for some guest star coming in. Notice the title of the episode, on a very special episode, which is what episode 5 is called. And he definitely gave off a lot of Uncle Jesse vibes, at least to me, in terms of how he was talking.
Oh, for sure.
But there are reasons I feel to. I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious, but I guess others may not feel this way. That Evan Peters is not playing the same character he played in those movies. That's just not what I'm getting from what I just saw. There are a couple of reasons to feel that way. The color of his hair is not how it was in the movies. It is exactly how Aaron Taylor Johnson had his hair in Age of Ultron, which was mostly white. And I believe Evan Peters was mostly silver. Also, he's not acting, he's not talking like that character from the X-Men movies was like. So I don't necessarily think this means that this is the same version. This is the same character from those movies. That doesn't mean that the mutants are going to come back into the MCU. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be X-Men movies. There will be, and that will happen in its due time, but I am not at all convinced this is supposed to be that character. I think what Darcy said was pretty much on point. They recast him, and this is Pietro. This is a version of the character we had in the MCU, but with a different actor. What do you think about all of this, David?
Well, the way he acted could just be because of the trans that
That's
they're on. True. But I mean, I don't really remember exactly what his hair was in the movies. So, I mean, you could be right that, I mean, that's definitely what I thought. Like, so like the camera pans to the left and all that, and you see the back of his head. And I really thought like, oh my God, that is the one from the movie.
Also keep in mind, just real quick, that Quicksilver character, in terms of when those movies take place, they take place in the 80s and 90s.
Well, that's kind of my thing I want to pinpoint too, is that, I mean, yeah, you're right that he just happens to come in right when she thinks that she kind of wants to leave, or like Vision's almost convincing her or something like that. But he comes in when they're in the 80s era of comedy, and he's from the 80s. Yeah, I mean, he might not be the one from the X-Men movies, but he could still be like that Peter from another, a Quicksilver from another universe. You know,
right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, I just looked up his name on the movie. It's Peter / Quicksilver, in Days of Future Past. That's why I said Peter.
Peter, not Pietro. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we're gonna know pretty soon, right? The answer to that question.
Yeah, I guess. But
if this is another version of that character, I mean, does that then imply that the multiverse has already been cracked open?
Yeah, that's basically what everyone else is saying, is that the multiverse is open now. And I actually wouldn't mind if it was another Quicksilver from a different universe. Not the one from Fox movies, X-Men and all that. Because then we wouldn't have to be so excited about the fact, like, oh, who else can they bring back? Can it be Charles? And it can be either, I don't know, whichever the two actors that played him. It could be some
Ian McKellen as Magneto.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be him. It could just be some other Xavier from his universe or something like that. Just, I mean, I wouldn't mind that, just because we don't have to be too excited about who exactly they can bring back. Because let's face it, Hugh Jackman probably won't.
Yeah, but I think it's been pretty obvious at this point that the multiverse is being used to bring a lot of characters outside the MCU back in.
Mm-hmm.
You could say Daredevil, Jessica Jones, who have been rumored to be in different Disney Plus series, Deadpool also as well. So that could definitely be a place where this is going. Then it ends. He goes to Vision. Who's the popsicle? And then, laughs ensue, and that's the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And there we are.
So that scene, I thought that scene almost got spoiled for me. Because I usually watch the episodes like right after, or like as soon as I wake up.
Never open Twitter.
Well, I don't have Twitter. I don't have Twitter.
Okay.
But I do have Instagram, and I go through like the suggestions and all that. Blah blah blah. And so like the whole time I'm seeing posts of them going like, oh, when you see like how people reacted on that scene, like they weren't being specific about it, but I thought but I could see the shot of her like opening the door. You see like a little bit of his face on the side and everything, and so in my mind I'm like, oh my god, it looks like Doctor Strange? Is it Doctor Strange or something like that? And I thought it was Doctor Strange because I saw a post. It was a meme. It wasn't accurate at all, but like, yeah, but my mind was racing during that scene. It was funny.
It was. So overall, great episode. We can't wait for next week and to explore all of these, all that more. So, I think we're just about done. Just one more thing I will say in terms of how the show is being covered, in the media. I just have to give a shout out to Scott Mendelson of Forbes. I've been following him for a long time. I love his analysis and the movie industry and the box office in particular. He has really great insight. That's his job for the most part. But I think he's also pretty apt when it comes to talking about the quality of certain products, if you will, in this industry. And he had a piece that was so unlike anything else, that its existence was so refreshing. And where he said that the article was titled "How WandaVision Succeeded Where the Mandalorian Failed." And the main thesis of this is, unlike recent Star Wars movies and shows, Marvel makes sure its twists, cameos, and callbacks means as much to the characters as the fans, and expand rather than contract their universes. Meaning, it makes, when they do cameos or references, when Marvel does it, it does both expand the size of the MCU, but then it also has some kind of character value in that Wanda is very shocked at what she's seeing, because she's also confused what she's seeing. Like, this is Pietro, but he doesn't look like Pietro. Whereas in other examples in The Mandalorian, it's very much something that is, like with the Luke Skywalker reveal, that's very much for the audience of the show. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing to the characters that are in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Other things I'm not going to get into. It's just too depressing. It's just people bashing on it, saying that, the first 2 episodes were a waste of time. There was no character development. You can skip the first 2. I was going to quit or something. It's just beyond annoying. I think one tweet here by Jessica Ellis, I think summed it up for me when she said, I have done some sad head shakes at WandaVision takes about how it finally got good, quote unquote, when it got to episode 4. Okay. Yeah. So, just in case you out there were wondering to see how it's coming across. Overall, very positive reaction across the board, but,
For sure.
Yeah. Well, David, I think if we have nothing else, I think we can go ahead and close it off.
I just want to mention the scene where Vision wakes up Norm. I love that scene just because I really thought they were putting in some funny jokes in it. They were cheesy, but it was super funny for me. I like it when he was like, let's open up some emails and all that. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And he brings out a letter opener. I just love what Vision said. It's like, we don't need that. We're already cutting edge. It's so dumb.
I didn't even get that joke. Oh my God.
Oh, really?
And that must have gone over my head. I don't know why. Wow.
And then the last joke was, it's like, so let me understand this. If I could send an email or know that, where do I put the stamp? It's a stupid joke, but I don't know. He delivered it well.
Yeah. All right. Well, this will go ahead and wrap it up for us. Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you, Alexis, for listening in to this. And thank you all to the listeners. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with more WandaVision recaps. And don't miss our 300th episode coming up in your direction pretty soon. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, CastBox, YouTube. All right here. Stay under the spotlight, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.